Well, it is election night in California. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Thomas.
I'm Laura Painter. Great to have you here. We are coming to you live on the ABC10 Plus TV streaming app as polls close in about an hour. The statewide special election is all about Proposition 50 and redrawing the state's congressional districts.
Yeah, we've seen voters at the polls throughout the day, and lines are still forming tonight. Just look at this line in Placer County. Remember, as long as you are in line before 8, you should be able to cast your ballot.
Yeah, there is one issue on ballots tonight. Prop 50 is asking voters if they want to temporarily bypass the state's nonpartisan redistricting committee and replace existing maps with the proposed maps for the next 3 election cycles. That means through 2030. The state legislature introduced the constitutional amendment for it in response to Texas's redistricting effort earlier this year, with Governor Gavin Newsom as the face of this campaign.
Now, people opposed to this election say this proposition is undermining the letter and the spirit of the California Constitution. Republicans also say the measure could set the stage for the possible elimination of California's Independent Redistricting Commission. And new tonight, laptop issues at a voting center in Arden Arcade have been resolved. Sacramento County officials say the problem lasted about 15 minutes at a location on Cottage Way. We do have team coverage tonight. Alex Bell is live in the studio tracking what could be major impacts to local districts if Prop 50 passes. Jeannie Nguyen is at the California Republican campaign headquarters.
ABC 10's Garth Malsanga is live at the Sacramento County Registrar of Voters, where ballots are being counted tonight.
But we do want to start tonight with ABC 10's Becca Habegger at the state Democratic headquarters downtown. Becca, I understand people there are feeling a bit optimistic.
Yeah, Chris and Laura, Democrats here are feeling positive. They're feeling excited. They cite both polling and the political makeup of early voters, saying both point to Prop 50 passing. Now, unlike previous elections where we had to wait weeks for the outcomes of several races, political data expert Paul Mitchell, who also redrew the proposed maps, tells me he thinks we'll easily know the outcome of the election tonight, and he thinks Prop 50 will pass. But keep in mind, California's redistricting would only counter Texas's redistricting. Other Republican states are redistricting as well, so I asked Democratic Congressman Lamalfa if a Prop 50 win tonight would be more symbolic than practical.
I wish we didn't have to go through mid-decade redistricting because I do support the independent commission, but it is where we are right now. So we're doing our part in California. That's what we can do. You know, my district will get split in 2 and we'll make a decision on where I run. But this is about, giving a voice back to people, and, we'll see what happens in the other states.
If Prop 50 passes, Congressman Barra will have to decide whether he'll run in his current district, District 6, or challenge incumbent Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley in District 3. And if Barra does challenge Kiley, he will face another Democrat. Former State Senator Dr. Richard Pan has announced that he is challenging Kiley as well, so we will be following that case closely, depending on the results of Prop 50. And also, I spoke earlier tonight with the man who redrew these proposed maps, Paul Mitchell. We'll hear from him in a little bit here on the ABC10 Plus streaming app. Additionally, we expect Governor Newsom might be here at the California Democratic Party headquarters later tonight after polls close. Hopefully, we'll hear from him live soon then. Stay with us tonight. For now, I'm live in Sacramento. I'm Becca Habegger for ABC10.
Yeah, Becca, I just want to ask you quickly. I know you've been speaking with people out there in the field. Did the Democrats share with you what really inspired them to get out and vote today?
One thing that I'm hearing is that a lot of Democrats got out actually and voted early. There was so much excitement around Prop 50. Maybe one thing that we're hearing, though, is a lot of Democrats, the phrase that I'm hearing is voted yes, but plugged their nose. Maybe they didn't love the idea of, putting aside the Independent Redistricting Commission. But as Governor Newsom has put it, they felt California needed to fight fire with fire, push back on what Republicans are doing in Texas. So that mobilized a lot of Democrats early. So Paul Mitchell, that data expert who redrew these maps, he's telling me that a lot of the early voters are Democrats. That's one of the reasons why he feels confident Prop 50 will pass. Congressman Barra told me he's seeing long lines at college campuses, so he's excited about Prop 50 passing as well. That is his anticipation. So that's essentially kind of what I'm hearing out here, is that a lot of early voting from Democrats.
Yeah, Becca, thank you for that insight. And we'll be talking about those topics more with our panel later on in this streaming newscast. But we'll talk with you again soon. Becca, thank you.
For now, let's continue our team coverage tonight. I want to stay in downtown Sacramento because the No on Prop 50 side is holding a watch party at the state Republican Party headquarters. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen is there. So, Jeannie, tell me, how is the mood there tonight?
Well, Chris, it's been pretty quiet this entire evening, but with about an hour left until polls close, it is the final push here at the California GOP headquarters to encourage people to vote no on Prop 50. Now, Chairwoman Corinne Rankin is expected to speak a little later this evening, but to date, the No on Prop 50 campaign has raised nearly $85 million, which is just a fraction of what the Yes on 50 campaign has raised, and that's according to the California Secretary of State's website. Now, that left some of the grassroots organizers here in the state feeling like the Republicans didn't do enough to rally against Prop 50. But in the last 3 weeks, the state Republicans say they've raised just over $11 million to ensure voters are getting their message. Republican Congressman Tom McClintock tells me he is concerned about the future of the state if Prop 50 passes.
Your voters in conservative rural Alturas will have their congressman chosen by liberal Marin County voters that are 350 miles away. Tiny farm communities like Lodi and Clovis are split 3 different ways to get the desired outcomes. So I'm afraid if this succeeds, and the polls say that it may, we can expect that every time the Democrats don't like the way a district votes, they'll just change the district.
Now, even though early numbers in the polls do predict that Prop 50 will pass, the mood is very hopeful here, as the Republicans here are expecting a last minute surge of voters showing up tonight to vote no on Prop 50. Live at the California GOP headquarters, Jeannie Nguyen, ABC 10.
Indeed, we are seeing lines really across the region. We're going to be watching this throughout the evening. Jeannie, we'll check back in as things merit. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's stay in Sacramento right now. Our team coverage continues in Sacramento County.
Yeah, ABC 10's Paul Sangha is actually at the Sacramento Register of Voters office. That's where ballots will be processed and counted tonight. So, Paul, talk to us if you can. We know that there is a busy night ahead. When we spoke to you earlier, you were showing us as people were coming and going throughout the evening. Talk to us about what you're hearing when it comes to turnout so far.
Yeah, Chris and Laura, right now you guys had mentioned about lines. We're seeing one right here. What you're seeing is voters that are registering the same day to vote, or they have an issue with their ballot, or they're just wanting to drop it in. That is what is happening inside. And speaking of turnout, I did get a message from Sacramento County that they told me so far 367,000 ballots have been turned in. That is north of 41% turnout. So that is what they have. There's still a lot that still haven't been counted. Also with the ballots that have been dropped off at these ballot locations, those haven't been counted, but what they have counted so far, they tell us north of 40% turnout. So that is the exciting news, especially with this election that has been put on in just mere weeks, where a lot of election offices had to scramble to find locations, voting centers, and we're told this is one of 31 vote centers for Sacramento County, which is fewer than they've had in previous elections because just how quickly this election needed to come together. So as you guys mentioned, we're here at the Sacramento County voter registration and election office at 65th Street in South Sacramento. We're just less than an hour away until polls close, but this line just forming here as people making sure their voice is heard. And as we mentioned, you guys had mentioned about the tech issues. The only one that we had heard about was the one at Arden Arcade. That was the location at 2201 Cottage Way. We're told there was 2 computers at the location. They were down for about 15 minutes, but those computers have come back online. So the voting there in the Arden Arcade area of Cottage Way has resumed. So again, polls close at 8 p.m. This line slowly is going to be dwindling, but no word on just how many people are going to be in line. But if you're going to be in line around 8 p.m., make sure you stay in line. If you're going to be in line, you are allowed to vote. So again, long line here, and we don't know just how much more we're going to get here for about the next 45 minutes to 50 minutes. Reporting live in Sacramento County, Paul Sangha, ABC 10.
Okay, our Paul Sangha, we thank you for that, sir. We'll check back in with you throughout the evening as well.
We are joined now by Congressman Kevin Kiley, who represents District 3, and Prop 50 could have major impacts on his district. And Kevin Kiley has also introduced legislation in Congress to stop mid-decade redistricting nationwide. Congressman Kiley, thank you so much for joining us. You've been a busy man. We've been seeing a lot of you lately, and this is a big night. There's a lot at stake for you. Let's start with your objections to this redistricting battle. You have called it degrades democracy. Can you explain?
Yeah, and I'm against gerrymandering wherever it occurs. I'm against it in California. I'm against it in Texas. I'm against it in every state that's now part of this escalating redistricting war, because what gerrymandering does is it basically shifts power away from voters and puts more power in the hands of politicians. And it's also really destabilizing having this happen everywhere in so many states across the country in the middle of the decade when it isn't supposed to be happening. So if Prop 50 goes through, my district will be broken into 6 different pieces. I really don't like that, because I happen to think I represent the most beautiful district in the state. It's where I was born and raised and went to local public schools. But we'll see how things come out tonight.
Yeah, Congressman Kiley, talk to us about why party leadership hasn't brought this to the floor. Do you feel supported by your party, or do you feel like they're just leaving you out in the cold?
Well, I'm really disappointed that they haven't brought it to the floor for a vote. I've strongly encouraged them to do so, and it's honestly not too late. And I think that we're seeing actually more interest from members on both sides, Democrat and Republican, who tell me all the time that they think this is the right thing, that having this redistricting war break out all across the country is exactly the wrong thing for our country right now. So whether or not it has an impact on Prop 50 and whether or not Prop 50 passes, I'm going to continue to advocate for this bill to be heard, to be voted on. And I think if it is voted on, then it'll actually pass. And then we could say, all right, let's all move on with our lives. Stop redrawing district lines all the time. Let's focus on the issues that actually matter towards improving people's lives in this country.
Talk to us about what this will mean for your future, sir, if this does pass tonight.
Well, I'm confident that I will be able to win re-election no matter what the map looks like. And the reason for that is that I have a track record of getting support from Democrats, Republicans, people of all party affiliations, because I don't view it as my role to support one party or the other. I ran for Congress pledging to be an independent voice for our district and to fight for all Californians. So that's why in the last election, I actually got the second most crossover votes of any competitive race in the country, meaning people who actually voted for Kamala Harris for president, but voted for me for member of Congress. So I think that however things come out, I'll have a strong case to make for re-election, because I've focused on issues that really matter to our communities, like getting a big federal grant to fix the traffic situation around 65 and 80, passing landmark legislation to protect beautiful Lake Tahoe, and a whole host of other issues just to protect the quality of life that we have in our area.
You sound confident that you will be able to keep your seat, but let's talk about your constituents and your potential opponents here. Some of them have said that you have not stood up enough to President Trump when it comes to issues that they care about, like the VA and Medicaid and SNAP. What is your response to them?
Well, I actually have co-sponsored legislation to keep SNAP benefits going even during the shutdown. If you want to see whether I've been completely consistent with our party leadership, you could just go ahead and talk to them right now. I've been extremely critical of the way that Speaker Johnson has handled the government shutdown, with the House being adjourned for the last 6 weeks and recessed, having canceled its session. I've actually been here trying to work in a bipartisan way. I did everything possible to get the government back open. And in fact, just today, me and Sam Liccardo, who's a Democratic representative in the San Jose area, we released a bipartisan framework for extending the healthcare subsidies for a limited amount of time that are about to expire. If these subsidies do go away without at least a temporary solution, people are going to see a huge increase in healthcare costs. So I ran for Congress for pledging to try to overcome the partisan divisions that are deepening in this country. And I think that's more important than ever. The country is very divided, and I think this whole redistricting mess and the government shutdown are just the latest indications of that.
You kind of read my mind, Congressman, because I was going to say, I know you've been advocating for the Congress to come back into session as this is going on. Talk about how you feel perhaps the shutdown is impacting and the role that it's playing as people are now out voting for this redistricting issue.
Well, whether or not it's affecting the vote on redistricting, it's an absolutely terrible thing for the country. You have people who are really, really suffering this interruption in SNAP benefits, air traffic controllers having to go and do these really stressful jobs without getting a paycheck. They would miss a second paycheck next week. Now, all of the flight delays that we're seeing as a consequence of that, all of the people who have been furloughed, and just the cascading consequences for millions of people because of Congress's failure to do its most basic job of keeping the government open. Now, to be clear, I voted to keep the government open 6 weeks ago, and I voted to avoid a shutdown. And I did the same thing whether Joe Biden was president or Donald Trump was president. But at the same time, I fundamentally disagree with the decision of the Speaker of the House to say we're just going to leave town, we're going to cancel all of our business, and we're not even going to talk to anyone. Like sometimes in politics, you actually have to have conversations with people who have a different position than you in order to find the common ground that's best for the country. And so that's what I've been doing with colleagues like Sam Liccardo on the other side of the aisle. And because of these kinds of conversations, I think actually the good news is that there's a little bit of a thaw right now. I think that there's a little bit of hope that we could get out of this thing in the not too distant future.
Yeah, Congressman Kiley, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight with us. I believe you're going to be having a news conference after the results and the polling start to happen. Is that still going to happen?
Yes, that's happening tomorrow. So maybe I'll see you guys there.
Yeah, all right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Congressman Kiley. We do want to turn now to breaking news just into our newsroom here. We've been tracking other races across the country tonight, of course, but the Associated Press and ABC News have called the New York City mayor election for Zohran Mamdani, beating Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa. He also beat former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo for the Democratic nomination, you may remember, earlier this year, and Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa, founder of the Guardian Angels. He was hoping for a major upset here, but he becomes the city's first Muslim mayor. And we also have some more breaking news right now, too.
Indeed, Virginia has elected its first female governor. Abigail Spanberger, a former Democratic congresswoman and CIA officer, will be elected Virginia's next governor. The 46-year-old mother of three beat Republicans' lieutenant governor there. Now, Spanberger's campaign focused on affordability and addressing local concerns about the impact of federal job cuts and the government shutdown. Her victory will flip control from Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin and gives national Democrats a boost as they try to respond to the second Trump administration.
And in New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill defeated Republican Jack Ciattarelli, who was endorsed by President Trump. Now, she will succeed term-limited Democratic Governor Phil Murphy. Sherrill, a Navy veteran who represented a northern New Jersey district in the U.S. House for 4 terms, will be the state's second female governor. So let's bring in our guest panelists now, Democratic strategist Andrew Acosta and Republican strategist Rob Stutzman, for their reactions on this breaking news that we've been having.
Let's talk about this because this really does run the gamut of the political spectrum when it comes to Democrats, right? You've got a Democratic socialist and then also a mother of 3 who spoke out against her own Democratic Party when it came to things like the police and how we should not defund the police, she said. What message does this send about the national mood?
Well, I think it's going to send a few messages. One, Republicans are going to jump on the New York mayor's race to say, look, this is what the Democratic Party's about. Mamdani won 50%. It's not, a mandate. The other two candidates got about 50%. So it's a big win for him. But I think Democrats are going to look at places like New Jersey, where Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, both in New Jersey and Virginia, won almost similar amounts. And I think the polling was showing that New Jersey would be a lot tighter. And it looks like Mikey Sherrill has run away with that victory, where she used economic issues. Trump was obviously on the ballot. Trump stayed away from those areas because he's not very popular. So, I think there'll be a lot to sift through, but it's probably overall going to be a good night for Democrats in those areas, and probably a good night for Democrats here in California as well.
Talk about that. I mean, this notion of, can you paint the Democratic Party as Democratic socialist when you have what you're seeing in Virginia, for example, with the governor who was very pragmatist, if you will?
Well, Republicans are going to try. But I also think, I think you're going to have moderates in the Democrat Party that are also going to look at New York over the next couple of years and say, that's really not what we should be. We should be more like Mikey Sherrill and Governor-elect Spanberger now in Virginia. It'll be interesting to see how they govern, if their popularity remains. But the Democrat Party has a big choice to make in the next 3 years about what type of person they're going to run for president. Someone that looks like the two ladies that won tonight, or someone that looks more like the young man in New York that won tonight?
Right, tonight. I mean, that's a really good point, because can Zoran Mamdani be the face of the future face of the Democratic Party? It's been said that it's easier to win as a Democratic Socialist in Brooklyn, New York versus Brooklyn, Ohio. So where does this put the party now?
Right, there are Democratic Socialists that are here in California. There's folks in Los Angeles. So it's not like we haven't seen this before. I think the real hard part is what they ran on in New York on affordability are things that are going to be really tough to implement. And, I work for the mayor here in Sacramento, and I've seen how slow government works. I'm assuming New York is probably a lot slower, a lot more layers of bureaucracy. So we'll see. I think all this is going to see, it'll play out in terms of what he can accomplish over the next couple of years. But as Rob said, Trump already sees this guy as a foil, and he's going to go after him every chance he gets and try to paint every Democrat with the brush of a Democratic Socialist.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so talk to us, because we're here also tracking here in California, the remaining thing that's out there to come in, the redistricting, right? Prop 50. What happens tonight? Will it pass?
It's going to pass. I mean, I think it's interesting that you're in Placer County. Placer County was a county that supported the recall of Gavin Newsom by 57%. More Republican. There's a lot of Republicans that want to walk in and vote on Election Day, was what you're seeing. So the really interesting thing, I know a lot of political folks like myself and Rob are looking at, where does this pass and where doesn't it pass? What are the areas that Prop 50 is not overwhelmingly, is Placer County a place that it does not support Prop 50, right? Mm-hmm. And then you'll see these new congressional districts. Are they places that Prop 50 passed? Because then that's going to show, is Newsom really popular in those areas? And I think that's going to be an indicator going into the next election cycle.
And I do have to say, we do have our Alex Bell standing by with the maps. He'll be able to look at county by county to see exactly what you're pointing out, how all of this plays out. But what about you? Will it pass? Will it not?
It'll pass. It'll pass tonight. And, one of the storylines is what Congressman Kiley was alluding to, which is he hasn't received much support from his speaker. The man he voted for to be speaker has basically abandoned him and every other Republican member of Congress on the prospect of, I guess, 5 or 6 new members from Texas who he hasn't met yet. So these Republicans have been abandoned. Now, that's maybe should be instructive to them that the Trump-led party does not care about their careers out here. But it's very disappointing for Republicans that there was not a commitment to fund a campaign to go toe-to-toe with Newsom and the Democrats, because the Republicans got wildly outspent in this race. Yeah,
let's expand on that more. I mean, why did the national donors on the Republican side not come out? Why did they leave them out in the cold here?
I think they figured the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, as they say, that it just would have torched $100 million and then leave in place expensive races for them to defend. So I think they're playing the national map game. Also, I'll be honest, Republicans are going to win or lose the House most likely, depending on the state of the economy next year and Trump's approval rating. Not whether or not we've probably swapped a couple seats between California, Texas, Indiana, or Ohio.
Mm-hmm. That's a good perspective. Yeah. I do have to ask you, do you feel that this will have any national implications beyond for the governor himself? A lot of people have been watching this to say, is this his launching platform for running for president?
Well, this is obviously the easy storyline is going to be Newsom for president. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of that, and you're already seeing it. So, what happens next? I think Kevin Kiley is going to make an announcement tomorrow. Ami Bera is going to make an announcement next week, and there's going to be probably 10 other candidates that make an announcement. So all these races have to shake out to see, is it really going to matter? Are they going to win the seats to win the House back? And that's the next thing, we'll see. Does Gavin Newsom, is going to be out campaigning for these candidates? Is he going to be popular in these areas? It was telling who was campaigning in this last cycle. It was Barack Obama that was in, these big governor's races. It wasn't Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. So, that's a tell of who you want to come into your state is someone who's going to help you, not someone's going to drag you down. So we'll see how all that plays out over the next couple of years.
For you, when it comes to Governor Gavin Newsom and his perhaps larger ambitions, if you will, how does this set the stage for him?
Well, it sets it up very well for him. He's been able to build infrastructure that will help him run for president. He has been able to give Democrats their first really feel-good win in a year. after that loss for them for the White House, he was able to authentically take on Trump and deliver something tangible. So he'll exit 25 as the quote unquote front runner for a nomination that's still 3 years away. But it's been a very good year for him. It'll be tougher next year when he's a lame duck, can't run for re-elect, has a budget deficit, a lot of problems here, and several other governors who will run against him for the nomination will be running for re-election. That'll be their time to shine.
Well, I think one thing, it's been a good 3 months for him, because the first 4 or 5 months of this year were not great for him. He had Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk on his podcast. He was catching a lot of criticism. I was at the Democratic convention. There were a lot of people at that convention who were a lot of grumbling about Gavin Newsom. So where he is today, you can see his numbers have rebounded. And I think there's a lot of Democrats that are saying, look, this guy's fighting for us.
And the fight is what people
That's what
liked.
they want, right? And it's a fight that's real. It's not, I'm going to send an angry letter to somebody, So.
Okay. Our analysts are standing by. They're not going anywhere. We got a lot more to talk about. What we do want to do now is bring in ABC10's Alex Bell. She's live in the studio, tracking this race closely. Okay, so Alex, if Prop 50 passes, it could have a big impact on some districts.
Oh, yeah, to say the least. And look, if you are checking out this map or you've looked at it yourself already and you're thinking, what the heck? Look, you're not alone. We know there's a lot going on. California just has a lot of districts, but there are 3 key districts that we've really been keeping our eye on. District 1, District 3, which, we just talked to Kevin Kiley, and then there's also District 5. So I'm going to break it down for you, some of the key districts that we have been looking at, because when you look at California, it's just so massive that I understand it can be hard to take in. So let's go out to District 1 first. Now, what I'm going to show you first is the current map. So I want you to look at the California-Oregon border up here. This is District 1, where incumbent Republican Doug Lamalfa has been since 2013. If you know the area up there, you know that this is a huge agricultural hub for us here in California. A lot of rice farming. Doug Lamalfa himself is a rice farmer. His farms are up there. I have been up there. But I want to take a look at how his district would change if Prop 50 passes. So there are 2 areas I want you to look at. Look at the California-Oregon border, and then look right here to Santa Rosa, because if this map passes, this is exactly what would happen. This is when we talk about what is at stake, what could change, and what could people actually be seeing now? What would the representation be in Congress if this were to change? So let me go back again. This is his current map. This is what it would be if Prop 50 passes. So you can see a lot of major changes here for his district. When I spoke to Representative Doug Lamalfa, he said, look, doesn't matter if Prop 50 passes or not. He is still going to fight for his seat if it comes to that. And I've also spoken to a lot of Democratic challengers who also said, look, if Prop 50 passes, we're going to come for your seat. And we've talked to constituents out there, both in District 1 and in District 3, who say, look, we like our representation. We like what they have been doing. But we've also talked to a lot of constituents who say, hey, maybe it's time for a change. So let's go out to District 3. I want to get to Kevin Kiley's district because we just spoke to Kevin Kiley. So think about his district along the California-Nevada border here. Think Lake Tahoe, think Death Valley National Park. I mean, his district is huge. We're going all the way from Inyo County all the way up to Plumas County. We also have Sierra County, Nevada County, Placer County, of course, El Dorado County, big areas here for us here in California. I'm not even going to have to explain it to you. Wait till you see the changes if Prop 50 passes. Take a look at this. Again, Kevin Kiley, District 3, current map. Changes? Yeah, that's a big change right there. Eastern Sierra, completely chopped off. Again, Kevin Kiley, as you just heard, saying that, look, if Prop 50 passes, he's still going to run. A lot of Democratic challengers, though, looking to face him. Now, you might be wondering, okay, if the Eastern Sierra gets chopped off here from Kevin Kiley's district, who does it go to? Well, let's go to District 5 here. And that's where we see District 5. Sorry, I got ahead of myself here. Let's look at the current map of District 5. And this is where, again, this is where Kevin Kiley's district is going to flip a little bit here. So this is currently District 5, all the way down from Fresno County up to, El Dorado County. And then you see a lot of counties in between here, Tuolumne County, as well as Mariposa County, and of course, Madera County. But District 5 is really where Kevin Kiley's district, if Proposition 50 passes, would get picked up. Because you see, look, Eastern Sierras would get picked up in these newly proposed maps if Proposition 50 passes. Now, there are a lot of districts that could also be impacted. Coming up a little bit later, I'm going to be taking a look at District 6. That's where Ami Bera currently represents. And then also District 7, where Doris Matsui represents as well. And look at some of the changes a little bit closer to home here in Sacramento County.
Yeah, Alex Bell, thank you. Very, very interesting stuff. I really love when you compare and overlap the different districts. It really helps put it all in perspective. You really know your stuff, and we'll check back in again. Don't go anywhere, everyone. Our streaming special continues here, and our panelists are still here as well, and we reporters live in the field. We're just going to take a short break, but we'll see you in just a couple of moments.
Good evening, Chris. You know, it's been a pretty quiet evening, but that doesn't mean staff here is not working. They've been, watching races throughout the country, and also they're making that, final push to encourage voters to vote no on Prop 50. And Chairwoman Corinne Rankin is expected to speak a little later this evening once results are called. But, just giving you some perspective to date, the No on Prop 50 campaign has raised just a little over, or nearly $85 million, which is just a fraction of what the Yes on Prop 50 campaign raised, and that is according to the California Secretary of State's website. And that has left some of the grassroots organizers here in the state feeling like the Republicans didn't do enough to rally against Prop 50. But in the last 3 weeks, the state Republicans say they've raised just over $11 million to ensure voters are getting the message. Now, ultimately, Assemblymember Carl DeMille tells me he believes that it's the people who will feel the impacts tonight.
I hope the voters are paying attention. This has never been about you. It's never been about your cost of living or crime or jobs or failing schools. It's never been about you. It's been about them, the politicians. Prop 50 was all about their careers and their advancement. And voters got conned.
Now, even though early numbers and polls are showing that Prop 50 is likely to pass, everyone that I've spoken with in the Republican Party tell me that they remain hopeful, especially as there is about 20 minutes left until polls close, and they're expecting a push and a rush of people casting their last-minute ballots. For now, live at the California GOP headquarters, Jeannie Nguyen, ABC 10.
Okay, Jeannie, we thank you for that live update. We'll check back in shortly, okay? But for now, we do want to continue our team coverage. And here's the deal. Keep in mind, if Prop 50 passes, one of the communities that could be impacted the most is actually right here in Northern California.
Yeah, some major changes. A city of just 68,000 would be divided into 3 separate districts. Here's ABC 10's Gabriel Porras from earlier today, continuing our team coverage from Lodi.
There are hundreds of them set up all across the state tonight, but this is not your average polling place. It's really at the heart of the impact. If Proposition 50 passes, many of the voters who showed up to this polling place here in Lodi would be switched over to a new district. In some cases, it's a matter of living on the other side of the street. With its traffic lights that have no arrows from Church Street, turning left or right onto Kettleman Lane can be a battle. But tonight, the battle over this intersection is at the ballot box, where Ernie Hernandez spent his morning.
I know how dumb it sounds, but hey, I thought of Hunger Games. I was like, okay, this is going to be some real-life Hunger Games stuff, so we're going to see who treats who better.
Lodi is within Congressional District 9 now, but under Prop 50, it would be split between Districts 9, 8, and 7. The border between the three, the intersection of Kettleman and Church.
My house is like a couple blocks down, but honestly, I don't see any difference.
When it comes to splitting the district, Lodi's leaders did see a difference.
The city is against this redistricting.
The city council voting in September to send a letter to Governor Newsom formally opposing the proposition.
I have no idea. I haven't looked at a map of it yet.
I haven't looked at the map yet to try to figure it out.
Even with the proposed border right in their backyard, many voters told us it was national politics that brought them to the polls.
Bottom line is, if whatever Newsom's for, I'm going to vote against it.
It's kind of a radical thing, and I've always been kind of a radical guy, so I think that people needed to be more radical, especially these days.
While they all have to choose yes or no, these Lodi voters still share this busy intersection and the same message.
I'm one of those ones that can actually say that your vote actually counts. Just get out there and vote.
In Lodi, Gabriel Porras, ABC 10.
Okay, let's bring back in our Alex Bell. She's live in the studio, helping us visualize what some of these changes could actually mean. Alex, what are you looking at for us now?
Okay, so I want to look at District 6, where Ami Bera currently represents, and then also District 7 under Doris Matsui. So this is the current map right now for District 6. Again, Ami Bera. But if Proposition 50 passes, here are some of the changes. And I want you to watch these areas right here, okay? You can see picking up some of Placer County here, even going down to Yolo County. So when we talk about districts changing, representation in Washington changing, this is what we're talking about. This is what is at stake. Let's go out to District 7, Doris Matsui here. Again, taking a look, major part of Elk Grove here, Sacramento County. We even have a little bit of here, Yolo County, and then Solano County. Now, this is, again, the current map of District 7. Look how it'll change. I want you to look up here at Placerville. Again, some major changes happening. District 7, if Proposition 50 passes, would pick up El Dorado County as well as San Joaquin County. Now, there are a lot of other areas that we are looking at. Chris and Laura, I'll get back to you shortly.
Yeah, Alex Bell, thank you for that perspective. It really just goes to show if you've been living in a neighborhood, you could really just, you could be living there for decades and your district could change overnight depending on the results here.
Absolutely. Some major changes too, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Our team coverage does continue tonight.
That's right. Let's go into Sacramento County now. We've been tracking this case throughout the region. For now, I want to get out to ABC10's Garjpal Sangha. He's at the Sacramento Registrar of Voters office where ballots will be processed and counted later tonight.
Yeah, Garjpal, we're just under 20 minutes until the polls close. How are the lines looking right now?
Yeah, Chris and Laura, lines are looking a lot better than the last time we spoke to you guys about 20, 30 minutes ago. Their lines kind of got up to where I was, but as I move out of the way, you can see right now some people are coming in to vote or just dropping off their ballots, but there's virtually no lines here at the Registrar of Voters. And the people that are coming in here, this is more the same-day voter registration as people that may have not signed up earlier, that they're coming in to make sure that their voice is counted. And the last update that we received from the Sacramento County is about roughly 40% of ballots have been returned. We know that number is going to increase as more ballots are gathered and brought to this center here. And there's about 915,000 registered voters in Sacramento County. And we're told there's nearly 368,000 ballots that have been returned. So we're just a little 18 minutes away until the polls close here. But this might be the slowest. We've seen it here in about the past 5 hours that we've been here. So that's a good sign of people that want to vote have voted. And we did speak to the county regarding just how this day has been.
It's been a busy day. We've been here since early this morning. All of our vote centers have been pretty busy. Our lobby here has had a steady stream of customers. All of our ballot drop boxes have been getting filled up today. It's been busy.
And so if people aren't coming in here, they're just going out there and dropping off their ballots. And right now, there's not really a lot of cars here. So it was busier just a few hours ago. Right now, this is a good sign. The people that need to vote have voted. But again, the polls still going to remain open for 17 more minutes. If you're in line, when 8 p.m. hits, you are still allowed to vote. But was just one of 31 vote centers that were open here. And usually Sacramento County has a lot more than that, but just because of this Proposition 50 and how it was put together, election officials only had weeks to put this together. So this is one of 31 locations, and the ballot drop-off centers are still open. So again, 17 minutes left. If you need to vote, highly suggest go out there and vote. As right now things are looking much better here than just about 20 minutes ago. Chris and Laura reporting live in Sacramento County. Garj Paul Sungay, ABC10.
Okay, Garj Paul, we do thank you so very much for that update. I do want to go out now to Jean Raya. She's actually the former chair of the Independent Redistricting Committee. It's a great honor to have you on live with us tonight, because the first thing I think we want to ask you is, how do you feel about this special election? What does this mean to you tonight?
Well, it's been of great concern to a number of my colleagues that I served with on the 2010 Commission, as well as there are 7 commissioners from the current commission who are also opposed to this proposition. The proposition is not the answer to it. It may feel good to think that we're going after everything that we don't like about the Trump administration, but it's really not the effective way to do this. Apart from disregarding the commission itself, it's also just mathematically probably not likely to produce the result that we're hoping for. We don't even know what's going to happen with the Texas maps at this point, and there are other red states very quickly jumping in to the redistricting wars. So I'm very concerned about if the proposition does pass, and I guess the polling indicates that it's likely to pass. I'm concerned about what's going to come next.
I have to ask you, with Michelle Obama, we had the "when they go low, we go high" phrase, and now we're hearing the governor say, "No, we're going to fight fire with fire" type of thing. On which side do you fall when you hear those types of things?
Well, I think that the Yes on 50 campaign has been very effective at reaching people emotionally with that "let's fight fire with fire." We're saving democracy. It's our only chance. We may never vote again. That's been very effective, I think, in rousing people to come out and vote yes, simply because they think this is really going to make a difference, or it's going to be a very strong message to Trump. I just don't think that is the way it goes at all. That's not to say that I think of on the other side of it, that it's just a moral position, and we can't possibly, get into a fight of some kind. But the fight should be finding good candidates, crafting a message that resonates with voters, and getting out the vote to elect the candidates that we want. So it's more than just drawing the district lines. It's really a whole lot of things that have to happen, and the voters, I think, are going to need to take a look in the future at what they're willing to do, the kind of work they're willing to put in to get their representatives elected.
Jean, should Prop 50 pass, what does it mean for the rest of the decade? Where does this position California?
Well, it means that for the 26, 28, and 30 congressional elections, the maps that were drawn by the Democrats, by the legislature in secret, without any public input, absolutely zero transparency, those maps will be used for those 3 election cycles. So the notion that it's temporary or that it's a choice, I think, are, again, loaded words that have been used in the Yes campaign that really mislead voters. They don't have a choice. They have a yes or no choice, but really nothing to say about the maps themselves. And as far as what's going to happen in 2030, a new commission will be seated, and if the independent commission is allowed to come back, if there is no new crisis declared, then those maps would still be used in 2030. That's 3 cycles where the voters have nothing to say about who the candidates will be for those 3 elections.
And I have to say, Republicans have warned that this perhaps sets the stage to do away with the Redistricting Commission. What do you think when it comes to that?
Well, I do have a concern that, as I said, a new crisis could be declared. For example, after 2030, it's very likely that California will lose congressional seats due to a population decline. So, yes, it's possible that then we say, we're kind of concerned about whether we can maintain that influence in Congress with fewer seats in California. So we need to set aside the independent commission once again and then go back to doing gerrymandered maps. And I think it's important for voters to recognize that neither party is innocent in this gerrymandering. It's historic across the country. And, I think there's always that self-interest on the part of politicians to hang on to their seat, to hang on to their power. And this redistricting war is just kind of driving that hyper-partisanship even more. So to think of it as a solution, I think, is completely misleading, because all we're doing is driving Democrats farther to one extreme and Republicans farther to the other. We're completely ignoring the people in the middle who are either moderates of both parties or independents.
Well, we cannot thank you enough. The former chair of the Independent Redistricting Committee joining us here on air live tonight. We do thank you for that. Your perspective is just invaluable. Okay, stand by. We are not done yet. Our coverage is really just getting started. We're back right after this.
Well, thanks so much for joining us for our ABC10 election night streaming special. We're going to bring in again our panel of experts, Democratic strategist Andrew Acosta and Republican strategist Rob Stutzman. We want to talk now about, okay, what could happen next? The deck is being reshuffled here. Eyes are looking at the possibilities of where these districts could move. Rob, we'll start with you. What are some of your thoughts?
Well, so Alex has laid out these districts and the focus on Kevin Kiley and what happens to his seat, because it's one of the ones they've tried to erase. The Democrats have tried to make that a Democrat seat. I think he can still be competitive, whether he runs in the current number district, the third, or he can move to this new district, the sixth. Ami Barrow will run in one or the other. Ami might make the move first and try to stare Kiley down on where to run. Or Kiley still has another option, which for Republicans would be unfortunate, but that would be go primary Tom McClintock on that Eastern Sierra seat that Alex laid out for us. So there is a lot that will happen, and I think will start to happen very quickly in terms of these musical chairs or the Rubik's Cube of where candidates will start slotting into what seats.
You know, it almost creates a Hunger Games style of things, right?
Right.
Where everyone is out, kind of every man, every woman for himself. And you were saying even some of the local candidates and local officials might start jumping in.
Yeah, you know, these districts don't come open often. And as we just heard, they're only going to be there for 3 years and then or three cycles and then we redistrict again. But it doesn't stop candidates from running. And there's a lot of politicians who are like, hey, why not take a shot, you know? And you know, Congress is a much different level of interest than, you know, running for state assembly or Senate. Like, people don't really care about who their legislative, you know, representative is, but they definitely care about who's going to go to DC and fight Trump, you know. So you could see, I think the scenario in the next week could be very fascinating to see when Barra makes a decision, what Kiley's decision is, and then what the bell goes off and everyone starts to run in those open seats.
Okay, so here's the thing. We've kind of established that we expect this to pass. Politico tried to make the case today, though, that it was a matter of margin, that if they don't really run up the margins, that they can't really proclaim success, that they need to have a double-digit, you know, lead, if you will. Do you agree with that, or is a win a win?
I think a win's a win. I mean, if this passes with 51 or 2%, which would be below the expectations, they'll take some of the wind out of this victory Newsom's going to have. But a win's a win. The maps will be redrawn with any margin over 50%. So I don't think that matters that much. And we are seeing on the East Coast results that Democrats are winning in blue states. Those are all New York City, Virginia, New Jersey, all places where Kamala Harris beat Donald Trump. But the margins look like they're pretty healthy for Democrats tonight.
Now, wait a minute with Virginia. Now, I worked in Richmond. Virginia is it's kind of capital of the Confederacy there in Virginia. You know, I mean, you know, it's a typical purple. I don't know if people say it's blue.
But there is a Republican governor there.
Right.
You know, so
and popular Republican governor. I think he has like 57%.
Which is a little different than what you've seen in New Jersey, where there was an unpopular Democratic governor. You know, so I think there's a little bit of a story to be told in all these places. But I think to Rob's point, Democrats look like they're having a good night across the board, and it'll be a rejection of Trump. And this whole campaign in California was all about Donald Trump, right? I mean, there's no way you could not think, like, what are we doing here?
It was very clear in the messaging.
All the messaging
ads
was
that
pretty
we've been
simple.
seeing.
If you don't like Donald Trump, this is the way to go show him, right? Stick it to him here. And you know, so I don't think anybody really sort of was confused at the end of the day. Now, I doubt if they were looking at the maps like Alex was showing us, but they definitely figured out, you know, this is Newsom versus Trump. And if it's 55-45, you know, I mean, the recall, Gavin Newsom defeated the recall, it was almost 60-40. Now, does it get to that high? You know, we'll have to see. But I think, you know, his popularity, Gavin Newsom's popularity, his favorables are right mid-50s. So I could definitely see this hitting that number, mid-50s.
Can he keep that going?
Well, I mean, you know, to Rob's point, next year he has to go back to being governor, right? There'll be bad budgets. He'll continue to fight Trump. He has to deal with the Democrats in the legislature on a bunch of issues. They know he's a lame duck. So we'll have to see if he can keep it going.
And Californians have grown tired traditionally of him being over-involved in national politics. And so are they really ready to just let him go run for president without tending to the day job where there's a lot of issues to deal with?
Right. You've been talking a lot with voters as well. Do you think that they've been a little bit left out in the dust as far as Newsom being really front and center on the national stage?
Look, I think his favorables are up, as Andrew has said. We're seeing that in a lot of private polling that he and I get to look at. And it's really from Democrats. Democrats, again, are so desperate to win and to fight back against Trump. They feel so helpless. And he has given them an outlet with this. And so that'll be a sugar high, I think, that lasts here for a little bit. But eventually you got to come back to governing, and voters will say, yeah, that's great. You're taking on Trump, but what about homelessness, traffic, crime, schools, et cetera?
Okay, we got the countdown going here. We're just minutes away from polls closing. Talk to me about what you make of the fact that we've had people lining up for this special election. The fact that you have even now at this time of night in Placer County, for example, people wrapped around the building. So many times you have these special elections, it's hard to even get people engaged, right? You know,
Hopefully they stay in line. Hopefully they stay.
Yeah, there seems to be a level of engagement this time around.
I think what we've seen over the last few cycles is this ebb and flow of do voters trust the all-mail voting? And clearly Donald Trump has told his Republican supporters, don't trust it. So you do see people who are now lining up. They're probably more conservative, they're probably Republican, and they're going to make sure their vote counts by walking in and voting. So it's hard to say, you know, anecdotally, is turnout going to be amazing? I mean, they're reporting 40% in Sac County. You know, again, the recall had a 58% turnout when it was on the ballot, and it was the only thing on the ballot. I don't know if we'll get that high in this. I think, what's the latest?
It was 30% this morning statewide with mail ballots returned. I think it's a hard time getting to 58.
So yeah, there are people who, you know, procrastinate, show up late, the dog ate their homework, whatever, right? And you see some of that, but I don't think it's going to be, you know, I think we'll have a pretty good handle, hopefully soon, if they can, you know, get the ballots counted quickly, and we're not waiting and doing this 3 weeks from now.
Okay, that's the other question, right? Like how, you know, how declarative do you think this is going to be tonight?
I expect it'll be declarative. I think the margin will be large enough. Most of the ballots will be counted tonight throughout the state, and I think the margin will be large enough that there won't be any question.
Okay, and we are less than a minute away from the polls closing. I'm seeing 40 seconds right now. But thank you, gentlemen. Always insightful. Our team is sticking around for more insight. We do want to get out live. Our team has been spread across the area. Our team coverage continues tonight.
Yeah, that's right. ABC10's Becca Hubbecker is live at the California Democratic headquarters in downtown Sacramento, where we are now. There we have it at 8 o'clock. The polls have closed. Becca, talk to us about what they're expecting there at the Democratic headquarters tonight.
Yeah, well, Chris and Laura, as we just heard from the political analysts, Democrats here are feeling optimistic, excited, and hopeful. I mean, they think this is going to pass for all the reasons that your analysts talked about. I mean, the folks here, they're citing polling, they're citing the makeup of early voters so far. You know, of course, we don't know the results of people who voted in person quite yet, but any second here, the county elections offices are going to be releasing the results of the mail-in ballots, the early voting. You know, I spoke with Paul Mitchell. He is the person who redrew the maps for Prop 50. He's also a political data analyst, and he said that he anticipates not only Prop 50 passing, but he kind of came with a warning. He said, look, when the polls close, we're probably going to see a huge landslide win for Prop 50. He says that gap will probably close. We'll probably see it narrow a little bit, but he still thinks Prop 50 is going to pass by a decisive margin. He believes that the race will be called tonight. You know, unlike previous elections here in California, where sometimes close races we can wait weeks for the results, that doesn't appear to be the case here tonight. That is not what is anticipated. You know, Paul Mitchell, he told me that, you know, Prop 50, of course, is set to change the maps for the next 3 election cycles. Critics have worried that California will make those maps permanent. So I did ask Mitchell, you know, why he believes the governor's commitment that we will return to the Independent Redistricting Commission after the 2030 census. Here's what he has to say.
This campaign spent over $100 million to convince voters in this crazy existential crisis of a president going into Texas and doing all this stuff, all this national redistricting wars we've never seen before. There was this ability to get voters to know they're going to come back to the commission and support a redraw. You couldn't get voters to just vote to eliminate the commission.
And he says that's because early polling on the potential of eliminating the Independent Redistricting Commission was about 12%. He says Californians like and want the Independent Redistricting Commission. He says this was a matter, as we've heard from Democrats, since this summer when Governor Newsom first announced this initiative of fighting fire with fire, of directly countering Texas's attempt to redraw its successful attempt to redraw its commission, its congressional maps. You know, they're trying to flip 5 seats red. California's trying to flip 5 seats blue. You know, I did speak, by the way, with Congressman Ami Bera, a Democrat representing District 6, if Prop 50 passes, and if it is successful, Bera his district will be split in 2. So he says he'll announce tonight whether he will run in District 3, his current District 6, or he will challenge incumbent Republican Kevin Kiley in District 3 if Prop 50 passes. So that is an announcement that will come from Bera if we learn that Prop 50 passes tonight. And we are also anticipating that perhaps Governor Newsom will be here at the California Democratic Party headquarters in Sacramento now that polls have closed. So we are awaiting that possibility and to hear what he has to say. So for now, I'm Becca Habiger live in Sacramento, potentially awaiting words from the governor. Chris and Laura.
That's something that we will bring to you live if and when it happens. Our Becca Habiger, we thank you for that live update. Our team coverage continues tonight now that the polls are closed.
Yeah, so let's get an update with ABC10's Jeannie Nguyen. She is live at the California GOP headquarters in downtown Sacramento. Jeannie, I understand you have a live interview with us, but first bring us up to speed on what's going on at where you are. What's the mood now?
Good evening, Chris and Laura. You know, the energy is picking up here at the California GOP headquarters, and I'm joined with Chairwoman Corinne Rankin. You know, polls just closed 3 minutes ago. How are you feeling right now?
Well, we've been here since 7 a.m. this morning. We've been making calls to all the Republicans, reminding them to get out and vote Prop 50. We're hearing that in Southern California and Los Angeles and San Diego, there's about 30-minute lines. So we're just waiting. We want to make sure that every vote gets counted. And, you know, we're just anticipating, waiting to see what the numbers come in.
We are hearing, I'm hearing right now, I'm sorry, from my producer right now, that ABC and AP have called the election and said Prop 50 passed. I know you're about to make remarks, and I don't want to get ahead here, but just, you know, early projections have said that Prop 50 will pass here. And that being said, you know, what is the work for the California Republican Party moving forward even after today?
Well, first of all, I think that it's important that we recognize the fact that this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. It is true that we think differently on this issue, but this is a political insider, career politicians versus the people of California.
And what do you want voters to know, you know, following this evening?
I would like voters to know that our independent redistricting commission here in California is something that California voters have valued for decades, and it would be really nice to keep it. I think it's the gold standard, and that other states should follow what we're doing here. And I don't think that we should have been put in a position where we are following the lead of what other states are doing.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rankin. This is California GOP Chairwoman Corinne Rankin. Of course, she is expected to make remarks shortly. We will obviously be covering that. For now, live at the California GOP headquarters, Jeannie Nguyen, ABC 10.
Okay, Jeannie, we thank you for that live update. But there you have it. Within just 3 minutes or so, the race was called yes on Prop 50 passing tonight. Our team coverage continues in Sacramento County.
Yeah, we want to bring in ABC 10's Paul Sangha. He is at the Sacramento Registrar of Voters office. The ballots, they've been processed, they've been counted, but that process is still going to happen, even though the race has just been called by AP and ABC News. But Paul, tell us about what you're experiencing right now at the Registrar of Voters office. You've been there throughout the evening. You've seen the long lines, the big waves of people coming in and out. Give us an update.
Yeah, Chris and Laura, the polls have closed, so we made our way to the back of where the ballots are sorted. Right now, this is considered the calm before the storm, where those ballots really start arriving. But you can take a look at some of the ballots have already been arrived, and this is what's going to be happening. This is just one of methods that is happening here. This is the ballot sorter machine. You can see that it rips open the ballot and allowing the staff here to open up, taking out the ballot, organizing it, checking the different signatures and whatnot. So that is what's happening here. But let me go ahead, let's go and listen to a county official explain this more eloquently as what these machines do.
The mail sorter is back behind me, and every ballot goes through that twice. Once to scan the signature, and again to sort it into the precinct and to open the envelope. And then from there it'll go to our extraction team where, working in pairs, they extract all the ballot cards from the envelopes.
And so they have a method that they continue to follow, and this election cycle is no different. And in Sacramento County, ballots went out to more than 915,000 registered voters and nearly 368,000 ballots were returned. We know that number is going to increase right now. So right now people here are breathing a little sigh of relief, but they know as we go into the night, things are only going to change as more ballots continue to arrive from the different vote centers and so around the county. So right now things are looking well. Check back in maybe 30 minutes to an hour. It could be a different story. Reporting live from Sacramento County, Garch Paul Sunga, ABC10.
Garch Paul with some behind the scene views for us as the votes are being counted. Garch Paul, we do thank you for that.
And of course, we're continuing to follow that breaking news. AP and ABC News have called the race. Prop 50 is a go. The Yes campaign has won. The race has been called. So let's bring in our panelists now. Democratic strategist Andrew Acosta and Republican strategist Rob Stutzman. Let's go to the Dems first. How are you guys feeling? And I mean, it goes without saying.
I'm shocked.
But wow, big surprise, right?
I think it was a fait accompli, and I'm surprised it took them 2 minutes to call it. I think they could have called this 2 hours ago because I think everybody pretty much knew where this was going. So. It'll be a good night for the governor and his team, and then we'll again the dust will settle, people will announce, and then everything will change back into politics. As people have said, this is about politicians, and this was about politicians. This was about gerrymandering, drawing lines for politicians, and that's what it is. And so now we'll see what happens next.
Right. And Rob, what happened with the messaging and the no campaign? Where did Republicans go wrong?
Well, the no campaign never really materialized to the degree it had to. They needed to change the topic from Donald Trump back to, hey, these are politicians drawing their own lines. It's complete self-interest. They never had the resources to do that. Former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, had talked about bringing in a big campaign to rival that, led by the governor, and it never, ever materialized. So they seeded the field. And like I was saying earlier, really left behind these Republican members of Congress. But Republicans in California are used to being outnumbered. And they're outnumbered again tonight. So they're going to lose tonight. But there's still a party that has gained in registration in this decade. There's still a party that can fight for some of these seats. I mean, a year from now, we could be sitting here, and if Kevin Kiley wins, or David Valadao wins down in the Central Valley, that's a pretty big rebuke to what was supposed to be yielded from Prop 50 passing for the Democrats. So we'll see. It doesn't have huge implications for Republicans, but it's disappointing, I'm sure, for a lot of them. They didn't get to compete on equal footing with the governor and his machine.
When we talk about implications, talk about from the national level, right? Because we look at what happened here in California with Prop 50. We look at what happened in New York and Virginia and New Jersey. It was indeed a night where Democrats kind of ran the board. I think Republicans were hopeful with New Jersey, perhaps, that they might be able to pull out the governorship there. And so, given that that was not the case, what should we read on the national level about the mood of the country when it comes to the Trump administration?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of this is a rejection of Donald Trump, across the board. And I think that's going to be hard for the Trump administration to say, hold on a minute, people got it wrong when the results are pretty overwhelming. So, but this is what we're going to see. This is what we're going to see in a governor's race. We're going to have people running for governor. That's going to pick up steam again here in our state. And there'll be a bunch of Democrats saying, I'm going to be the ones going to fight Donald Trump. So, if you're tired of seeing Donald Trump, well, then, turn off your TV for the next year and a half, because there's going to be a lot more Donald Trump in the election ads, both here in California and nationwide.
Can the Dems ride this momentum? I think implied, it's been argued, the fact that we even had this redistricting battle was that they may not have felt so confident going into the midterms. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Where do you think that stands?
Yeah, I think there's going to be, what folks are going to look at is, did Latino voters come out and did they vote? They didn't vote for Kamala Harris last time. There were, a couple million that didn't show up that had voted for Biden. So that'll be the next thing as people start sifting through this to see where was the vote, who came out, who voted, who didn't vote. And, what does that mean going forward? There is a rejection clearly of Donald Trump, but is it a coastal rejection of Donald Trump. You know, he ran up the score in Marin, not so much in Modesto. You know, and that's, I think, the things we're looking at.
I have to ask you, I understand the president had a private dinner at the White House tonight. What do you think the Trump White House is saying in response to these results tonight?
Well, what they say publicly might be different than privately.
That's true.
I mean, Stand By for the Truth Social saying that this was all rigged in California and that was voter fraud. I wish I could say that tongue in cheek, but I wouldn't be surprised if the president makes that allegation, which of course would be false. I think privately they're concerned. They're like, this does not mean that the midterms a year from now will follow suit from tonight, but some things are going to have to get better for the president between now and next year, and for the Republicans. Primarily his approval rating and his approval rating on the economy and the inflation rate. And we got to watch unemployment rate now as well. So this is a real warning sign to the Trump White House of, if you stay on this course, you could be really headed for a tough midterm. Maybe you need to start thinking about how to move the slides in a way that start to bring that approval rating back up.
Right. And in the past, you have expressed with us concern that voices are being diminished, right? Especially Republican voices. Now that redistricting, this mid-decade gerrymandering will be taking place. Can you explain some of your thoughts behind that?
Well, I get concerned that Republicans in California, I mean, you're going to go, look, Steve Garvey got, about 42% of the vote for U.S. Senate. Now, under this map, the Republican representation in the House of Representatives from California is going to be around 9%. So it is grossly unfair to, frankly, millions upon millions of Californians that they don't have that type of proportional representation. And, you know, the same is true, you know, it's happening in Texas, but Illinois did the same thing in favor of Democrats at the beginning of the decade, as did New Mexico. Parties will always gerrymander to their own interests if they have that opportunity, which is what the commissioner was very articulate about earlier, of how it's really unfortunate that we're giving back into politician interests instead of these independent efforts that truly create competition and allow voters and citizens to have greater voice.
We are getting reaction to Prop 50 being called as a pass tonight, saying that Prop 50 has indeed passed. No one seemed to think that it would not. The thing that we're going to be watching now is by how much. What do the numbers look like? What does it look like county by county? We do have our Alex Bell, who's going to be standing by to give us a look at the maps to try to see what some of the initial results will be, but will there be any surprises, or are there any areas that you're watching closely?
Well, I think all the areas we talked about in terms of these new congressional seats, you know, where do they fall with 50? You know, again, you know, a place like Placer County, that was a place that supported the recall of Gavin Newsom by almost, you know, 60%, 58%. Where does that fall in this? You know, is it a similar sort of, I think there were 28 counties that voted to recall Gavin Newsom. You know, do those counties all fall in line on no on 50? So those are the things I think we're going to start looking at to see, like, okay, is this different, fundamentally different than that election, or is it just sort of a repeat?
Yeah, some races have been really, really close. Remember last year, Duarte and Gray. So there still is a lot of wiggle room between both parties in some of these counties.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Adam Gray's seat has changed now. They've made it a little bit more Democratic. It's picked up some of Stockton, but it's still a seat that could be a target. So I don't think Adam Gray's out of the woods. They tried to take David Vallejo's seat and make it more Democratic, but it was pretty Democratic before, you know. So this is what we'll have to see is, are the candidates they're going to find better or worse, you know, to really make these folks work.
That's a good point.
You know, Vallejo, Adam Gray's been in tough races before. Vallejo's won and lost. Kiley's been in tough races before. There's not a lot of Democrats who've been in really tough races like this that can say, you know, I know how to work that muscle because I go to the gym every day for these tough races. Kiley said it, and he's been someone they've targeted often. And so we'll have to see how all of this plays out.
Let's ask our Republican at the table then. The question becomes, now that it seems this has passed, we talked about how this was supposed to set up 5 additional Democratic-leaning seats, if you will. How successful do you think this map will be, though?
Well, a lot of it will have to do with what kind of midterm it is. I mean, if it's a classic midterm and Trump's numbers aren't better, they probably win the 5 seats. They probably do. But that doesn't mean they hold them throughout the decade. And if things turn around and the midterm isn't as negative as it might be, looks like it might be a year out, look, we talked about it. Kiley can win. Vallejo can win. Gray could still get challenged by a Republican. You could still have competitive races. There's a San Diego seat, Darrell Iss's seat, that he looks like he could still be competitive in, possibly. It's a heavy lean down, but it's not a sure thing. So there's a little bit here a year from now. I wouldn't be shocked if we're saying, boy, this overpromised and didn't deliver for the Democrats. You still got to go out and play the game, so to speak. And we got to see who candidates are going to be. But I would say the odds are Republicans have a bad midterm next year. That's usually what happens to the party in power. And if that happens, then these districts more likely than not will perform the way Paul Mitchell and the Democrats drew them.
You got me thinking about, where does the shutdown fit in all of this? I mean, the timing of this, wow, it's a lot.
I don't think the shutdown will be a big issue a year from now when people are voting, unless there's another shutdown. Then it'll be about that shutdown. So, what the midterm will largely be litigated on has to do with a lot of months that lie ahead of what it is that Donald Trump might do.
Right. Well, the other thing we're going to see is Democrats being challenged by Democrats. And, we're already seeing that locally. We've seen it with Mike Thompson being challenged. There's races in Southern California. So there could be this, hey, look at the new guy in New York did. I could do that too here. So that's harder to predict. And, there's a lot of people who think, why not me? And I think you're going to see some of that.
Pelosi's being challenged.
Right.
Well, we have to talk about age, right? Because I was going to say Mamdani, 34, I think he is, right? And then we see Wiener there in the Bay Area challenging, the former speaker. There is a real, at least it seems within the Democratic Party, this sense that, we need some new, fresh leadership, if you will.
Right.
Building a younger bench.
Right. I'm old in the Democratic Party, and I feel like I don't feel.
You're old at both parties.
There you go. I'm just old.
They have good camaraderie.
But it's, there is a much younger vibe coming through. When I started this, before I had gray hair, I worked in these districts that were purple, and they were many of them. There's a lot fewer of them, and people want to go. They want to run somewhere. Well, the person in front of them has been there for a long time. They're like, okay, maybe it's my turn. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And, we'll see. I don't know if anyone's really cracked the code of how to do this. I think, but there's plenty of people who say, well, I can try. I'll do it differently.
Do you think it's helped with the messaging that they've had younger folks, quote unquote younger folks, AOC for sure, but then former President Barack Obama, whereas on the Republican side, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right? That harkens back to an old guard, 2008, but he was, really trying to, the front runner.
Yeah, he was the identifiable Republican voice. And, the reform obviously were reforms, the Independent Commission were signature political reforms of his time as governor. Republican bench in California obviously is pretty bare. The generational thing, though, is interesting because it still depends on message. Because you're seeing in the Democratic Party, and pretty much what we're seeing is young candidates on the left trying to push out incumbents. But some of the most successful Democrats in the country, some would say, are young Democrats who are more centrist. There's a congressman in Maine named Jared Golden, who's a vet. He's in his 40s. He wins a seat that Trump won by like 12 points. The two women that were elected tonight governors in New Jersey and Virginia, they're young still. They're under 50. So that's young. So it still depends what the message is, I think, as much as the generational aspect.
Yeah, you want to add to
that? And I think that there's a lot of consternation in the Democratic Party, but I think there's a as Rob said, the message matters, and I think people are going to say we need to win races. We want to make sure we start winning things. So, I would think that people do try to look to some of these successful candidates and what their message was, and New York's a one-off, right? It was a disgraced governor who probably shouldn't have run. They probably should have got a better candidate to challenge. And, Mamdani's going to win, but it's not going to be a 65%, overwhelming. It's going to be closer. So, but people, this is how politics is always, everybody wants to be the next big thing. They want to be that. And it's a lot harder to be that when you're 45 and you're not good with doing vertical videos, you know.
Good point.
Sign of the times, right?
Yeah.
Okay, stand by because here's what I want to do. I want to bring in ABC10's Alex Bell. She's been live in the studio because what we want to do is get a look at the maps, right? Let's take a look and see not only the numbers, but what do they tell us from district to district, if you will. Alex, what are you seeing? What stands out to you?
Okay, numbers are still being counted, but it's pretty much what you would think it would be. As we were talking about earlier, kind of District 1, the California-Oregon border here, where incumbent Republican Doug Lamalfa sits, it's kind of what you would expect. People are overwhelmingly voting no. You look at Modoc County, you look at Siskiyou County, I mean, and even Lassen County. I mean, no doubt here that they are still voting no against Prop 50. But let me take you out to District 3 here. Let's go to Kevin Kiley's district. Some interesting numbers here. I want to start first in Placer County. Again, District 3, Kevin Kiley, right along the California-Nevada border here. Placer County, kind of close right now. Again, ballots are still being counted, but Placer County, yes, 48%, no, 51%. Let's go up to Nevada County. Green right now, 55%. And then I'll even go up here to Sierra County. You're looking at 36%. Yes, 64%. No. Let's go home here in Sacramento, though. Again, what you would typically expect. Yes, 61%. No, 32%. And so I feel like what we're seeing here now is exactly what Rob and Andrew were alluding to, is people that were going to vote no, we're going to vote no. People that are going to vote yes are going to vote yes. And you're really seeing that. I mean, look across the coast here. You can see majority voting yes right now. And then even as we get down here to Los Angeles, I mean, Los Angeles, no surprise here, 74% voting yes, no for 25%. A tight race, though, that I was looking at right now, Fresno County. Take a look at Fresno County. Yes, 50%, no, looking at 49%. Going towards the Bay Area, Contra Costa County, overwhelmingly, yes, 72, no, 27. I do just want to remind everybody, ballots are still being counted, numbers are still coming in. But when you typically look at this map, Chris, as we were talking about, it looks like everybody's kind of voting what you would typically expect. I don't see anything really surprising here.
And what's the overall number for us right now, Alex?
Yeah, let's take a look at the overall number right now. So you can see right now in California, 65% voting yes, no at 34%, as things are still populating. I mean, every second we're getting new numbers in here.
Okay, stand by. We'll check back in shortly. It's still very early. But let's bring back our Democratic strategist, Andrew Acosta, and Republican strategist, Rob Stutzman. Okay, so you saw the numbers. That was the first thing we want to kind of get a look at, right? Your initial impressions.
I think it's, again, none of it's shocking. I think the Republican areas, the no vote's going to creep up because there's more Republicans that vote late. They're voting now. They voted today. Placer County, we clearly saw, firsthand what was happening. So, I think that it'll get tightened, in some of these areas. But overall, I mean, it's just going to be too much for the yes side to stumble at this point.
And as you're looking at these maps, are there any areas of concern? You're thinking, down the line, strategy-wise, as you're seeing these results come in, are there any surprises for the Republican Party?
No surprises. And we really, we have to wait for all the votes to get counted to get into the stuff that Andrew and I really get interested in. But a lot of it will have to do with interior California. I mean, Andrew alluded to this. We want to look at places where Trump outperformed himself in 20, or you could say Harris underperformed Biden in 24. But we saw significant movement in interior California amongst Latino voters. It'll be really interesting to see if that held, if that backtracked, or if they didn't vote the way they have been voting recently.
That 65% number, that's pretty high.
Yeah, but it's pretty early. I think some of that. To Rob's point, there's clearly Trump's unpopularity, his overreach on a variety of issues. There's this thought that these ICE raids is going to generate more of a Latino turnout, and we'll see. I mean, this is the first indicator for us in California to see did the Latinos come back that did not vote for Kamala Harris in the last election.
That's a good point. Are there other constituencies that you're eyeing as well? Black voters, women voters, maybe some that are undecided and independent that could,
Well, I think overall it'll be curious to see. It probably won't look like this, but if you're not a very good voter, you probably didn't vote. If maybe you voted the presidential. Maybe you took that one off. I don't know. I mean, this is all the stuff that you're going to have to look at. And overall, you can probably find some things to hang your hat on about, was this really a motivator for key constituencies? Or is it just college-educated, progressives and white liberals who came out and voted overwhelmingly, to support Gavin Newsom's his whole campaign against Donald Trump.
Okay, so I know one thing we were talking about. I got some news for you here. Representative Bera announced his run in California 3, positioning Democrats to retake House majority.
Yep, not a shock.
So it says, following the successful passage of Prop 50, Representative Ami Bera announced that he will run for re-election in California's newly redrawn 3rd Congressional District, entering the race with nearly $2 million in cash on hand, he says.
He wrote that 3 weeks ago, or a month ago.
Or more. Yeah.
Okay, feeling confident then, for sure.
Well, I mean, I think it's, I don't, there's some, I wouldn't say secrets, but, there's some things that people are pretty much like, okay, I can see the wink, wink, nod, nod. And, it's a great district. It goes up to Lake Tahoe. And I think it would be a district he'd be very competitive. He's already represented parts of that district before. So now we'll see what Kevin, checkmate, right? Kevin Kiley's gonna have to make a decision now, and tomorrow morning he might say, I'm going here. So
and the easier decisions, I'd think now for Kiley are the two other ones we outlined. Well, at least one of them, which would be go run in what was Bera's old seat, numerically at least, which would be the new 6th, which still has a big chunk of Kiley's current district in Rockland, Sun City. Or, and I think he'd at least would take a look at this option, does he go primary Tom McClintock?
How soon do you think we hear from Kiley now, though?
Kiley actually has a little bit of time, but not much. I still think he could take up to a week to sort this out, to be honest with you.
Right. He said he was feeling very confident, though, in our earlier interview.
I thought he said he was going to do it tomorrow. So, he's going to be at a press conference tomorrow.
He could say something tomorrow. He's going to have something to say about 50 tomorrow. He's going to push his whatever he does. But you heard Kiley in that interview sounded like, to me, a politician running as an independent Republican, critical of both parties, wanting to bring bacon home to the district. I mean, he's already running for one of those seats even before the polls close tonight.
Yeah, he's very uniquely positioned. I mean, left out in the cold by his party in some respects, arguably, right?
Yeah, he's got a story to say of, he doesn't have to criticize Donald Trump, but he can say, well, Donald Trump left me behind and didn't seem to care about me.
And then he also talked about, too, this notion that he also was one of the ones who was able to get bipartisan support, right?
Right. I mean, if you've watched Kiley's re-election campaigns, he's been pretty smooth when it comes to, appealing to the voters of both parties and independents. And he's not been afraid to go attack Democrats for being out of step and tying them to Gavin Newsom, who was not popular in his old district. So now we'll see, again, when we look at the Prop 50 numbers, what does that tell him? What path does that give him of what kind of messages to use to break away from Trump and Gavin Newsom, sort of pox on both your houses? I'm a guy who can stand up to both. So we'll see.
I think Congressman Kiley must be watching our newscast because his ears must have been ringing, because we literally just got this into our newsroom here. Congressman Kevin Kiley responds to Prop 50 results. He released the following statement and also a video message too. We'll try and bring that to you viewers when we can. But here's a quote from him. It says, "It is clear from the early returns that Proposition 50 will pass in California." Well, it already has. But while I believe the conduct of this special election, from the rushed timing to the suspension of voter protections, fell well short of the ideals we ought to strive for in our democratic process. Nevertheless, the people of California have spoken. End quote. Kevin Kiley there responding to the results. We kind of alluded to. We thought that he would be speaking about this, but any thought to reaction to what he was exactly saying?
Yeah, he's saying, "Okay, got it. I have to go make one of those decisions, and the decision will be pending." But I do think that was a bit of in the Hunger Games. Bera made the strong move by getting out quickly. I don't think unanticipated by Kiley. It's been a pretty well-known secret that Bera would prefer that district. But Kiley, look. If Kiley runs in the 6th, Gavin Newsom only won that seat by a little over 1 percentage point. Kevin Kiley runs harder against Gavin Newsom than any other Democrat out there. He basically makes him the proxy opponent in every race that he's ever run. That strategy could work.
Well, and I will tell you, here's the deal. We're waiting to see if we will indeed hear from Governor Gavin Newsom tonight. If so, we will bring that to you live. We are downtown at the Democratic State Headquarters, and if he does step to the microphone, we'll bring that to you live. But for now, we're talking about the results as they are coming in, getting an idea of how some of the early numbers, the pictures that they're painting for us. Our Alex Bell is actually standing by. If we can, I want to go over to her because she's been kind of looking at the numbers and giving us an idea of what they tell us about some of these initial results. Alex, what are you seeing?
Well, since we're talking about Kevin Kiley in District 3 here, let's take a look at that because it's kind of like everything Rob and Andrew have already been saying when we talk about Kevin Kiley. It's not like he's just running in a completely red district. He does kind of have more of a purplish district, something that he's really talked about. Look, I can appeal to people on the Democratic and Republican side. And when you see the voter turnout, it kind of looks that way. So again, Kevin Kiley, District 3 along the California-Nevada border here. I want to take a look at this because this is in District 3. In Yo County, we're seeing a yes for 51%, no for 48%. We keep going up District 3 right here. Placer County, 48, 51. Let's go right in here to Nevada County, seeing 55 and 44. Again, we are still waiting for Mono County to come in and Alpine County there. But again, no surprise here. You kind of see a mixed bag a little bit in some of these areas along District 3. But let's go into District 6. Ami Bera, you can see yes for 61%, no at 38%. Again, highlighting District 1 up here where incumbent Republican Doug Lamalfa sits. No surprise here. You can see overwhelmingly all of these counties, Siskiyou County, Lassen County, all voting overwhelmingly no against Prop 50 here. And then we kind of get down here to Fresno again. Let's check in on Fresno. Again, very close down here in Fresno as numbers continue to come in. But again, when we look at Kevin Kiley's district, we're still waiting for some of these numbers to come in. But no surprise, you are kind of seeing a little bit of a mixed bag. I do want to go, sorry, Chris, before I hand it back to you, down to San Joaquin County. We're seeing, this is a little bit close. San Joaquin County, I bring this up because this is District 9, Josh Harder's district. We've been talking a lot about Lodi possibly looking a whole lot different going from District 9 to District 7, 8, and 9. Well, here are the numbers that are coming in right now for San Joaquin County. We're seeing yes at 55%, no at 45%. So, Chris, I'm going to be very curious to see what the final numbers are when it comes to District 9 over where Josh Harder represents.
Yeah, still very early, right? But
Yes.
this gives us an initial indication of where things stand. Alex, we thank you.
Thanks.
We are joined now by Congressman Doug Lamalfa, who represents District 1. Congressman Lamalfa, thank you so much for joining us. The results are in. There's a lot at stake here, especially for you in your district. Can you give us your initial reactions to tonight?
Well, we're in California, aren't we? See, no, you just saw the map there, the Northern California districts. All those counties I've represented at one time or another in different iterations, and they all voted red. They all rejected this because they know they're going to be on the line, that their voice is going to be basically silenced on their rural issues, on their issues of timber management and farming and ranching and water supply and the other things that come from the land. They're now going to be subject to the type of thinking that comes from, Marin County and that kind of representation. If this holds, I mean, obviously we're not done with the votes here tonight, and I'm sure the gap's going to narrow, but it looks like that's where we are.
What is your message to your constituents tonight, knowing the results now?
Hang in there because we're in the fight, and I guess the angle on the treadmill is going to be a little bit steeper in order to run for election here, but we shouldn't run away from this just because they've rigged this election. They've cheated from what the rules used to be, including all the hijinks they did in the legislature to put this together at the last minute. They had to waive a lot of rules to do it, and I still doubt if it's even constitutional. So there's going to be legal tests against this because of equal representation, of one man, one vote. The census is. These districts aren't even accurate at all as far as the census would be. So, they keep the census numbers for 10 years for a reason. Then you have the whole concept that the commissioners that drew the lines aren't allowed to run for office for 10 years for the entire time if they drew the maps for, because they don't want a conflict of interest. You saw how these lines are drawn. They were for the interests of legislators, termed out legislators, to have a place to land. So there's a lot of big problems with this. And I'm just proud of our people, north of Sacramento, that turned out so strongly and put all red on the map up there and voting against this preposterous power grab that has happened.
Do want to ask your thoughts about this race being called in 3 minutes of the polls closing, right? Talk to me about your thoughts with that, because I know especially a lot of conservative voters like to vote on election day, right? And sometimes those results don't come in until later. Sometimes people call it the blue mirage, if you will. Give us your initial take on the fact that this race was called so fast.
Well, we know the news wants to make the call and make the news, right? And so if they believe that their projections they can sustain that, then it is what it is. But it is a little disappointing, I guess, to people when I say, well, can't we see all the results? But I suppose if it's projected that it's a really wide margin, they're going to do what they do on the newscast. So I'm not going to put a lot of worry into that. It's just a matter of all the votes will be counted, I'm sure of that. And we'll find out that it looks like 65 now. There's a lot. I know people that were voting against it that dropped it in the mail yesterday, and people carrying their ballots in. There's some people want to do it in person, like the old days. So those will come through. So maybe the gap narrows to 58 to 42 or something like that. It's kind of a moot point really on that to me.
I have to ask you, the president today, I think on Truth Social, talked about California and the elections process, saying that there should be even a criminal investigation, he suggested. Talk to me about your reaction when you see the president suggesting that there's perhaps something nefarious about the vote before it was in.
I think my focus would be, is it constitutional to begin with? Because they had to hurry to put this on the ballot. They waived laws, they waived rules. The legislators, by constitution, the voters affirmed 3 different times that they do not want legislators making their own maps. The last time the legislature did do it was back in 2001, and they came up with what's jokingly called the Incumbent Protection Plan. You look at the horrific lines they drew this time, the maps they drew this time, they divide up communities of interest. So I think the case to be made here really is, did they draw them equitably? Did they follow properly the laws that are already in place on how you set up elections, how you set up districts? And a really strong case can be made that they did not, that they hurried this, and that it's not going to be equal representation, equal opportunity for the voters and candidates, and that this could actually be held up. So, it's hard to tell what a court might do, but it will be heard.
Do you feel frustrated by your party in how you perceived how they might have supported you in your district during this special election?
I'm sorry that the audio didn't come quite through. How was that?
Are you frustrated by your party in regards to how you perceive how they've supported you or not during this special election?
I think the party effort was what it could be in this situation here. Nothing ever is run perfectly, but I think a lot of people worked really hard. We had a lot of donors come out of the woodwork to try and help fund this. But as you see, the Democrat Party is able to really put their hands on many, many hundreds of millions of dollars from giant donors, from billionaires, from oligarchs, and all sorts of other areas that it's a little more uphill for Republicans in this state to do that battle on a money front. So our message was one that was a little more difficult to deliver, because all the Democrats have to say is Donald Trump, and that's going to get a percentage of voters wound up in this state. Our side, we were making more nuanced arguments that we have to protect the Constitution. We have to protect what the voters' voice is on this. We have to protect areas that, the communities of interest, as I mentioned here, that people should have to be able, more like-minded folks represent their area instead of having such a cross-section within a district. A district is a subset of an entire state. A district should have a voice. That way you have an argument. You have a debate. They release wolves into my district that are devouring the wildlife and the ranchers' livestock up in my area. And at least me as a representative, I can go into a committee, I can go into a situation and have a counterpoint to those folks from the urban areas that think, oh, these wolves are wonderful. We don't care that they're eating up people's cattle and that they take the water supply away and ship it all out to the Pacific Ocean through the Delta, and farmers run out of water, and so many other things, high cost of fuel. Others say, well, hey, it's great to convert everything to electric cars. We don't think that up there. So when the Bay Area legislators are going to be representing District 1 and District 2, their voice is going to be pretty much drowned out by those ones are going to continue to Bay Area type thinking.
Congressman Doug Lamalfa, thank you so much for joining us here and giving us your insights and your reaction as the results have come in for Prop 50. The yes is on. It is a go. Thank you so much for being here. Let's bring in our panel now, Andrew Acosta and Rob Stutzman. What are you guys' thoughts to his reaction there?
Well, I don't think you're going to see Doug Lamalfa in an EV anytime soon, and he's probably going to, he's going to be running against a Bay Area liberal, so you can see the campaign ad is going to be, he left his heart in San Francisco or something. So, I think his point was well taken. It was, the campaign became too nuanced. It became too, it was too much for the no side that, in my opinion, that probably could have been a lot clearer of a message. I think Rob hit on this, and he brought it up there. This is about politicians drawing lines, and that's really what this whole thing was about. And that would have probably been easier for people to understand. But everyone's got a theory, and they ran a case that I don't think really stuck, and the Gavin Newsom team was able to just throw the kitchen sink into this.
Politico, Rob, had an article about the disappearance of the governor. You know what I mean? Especially that he came out initially forcefully talking about, the no side and why people, but then they talked about, but we didn't really see the man that the people knew as Terminator out really making the case for why this shouldn't pass.
Yeah, I thought that Politico article was a lot of misguided analysis. Arnold Schwarzenegger is in his late 70s. He's no longer in politics. He is a man with many interests around the world, has continued his entertainment career. He wasn't going to stop and run a campaign. That's not what he does anymore. The people that should have stopped and ran the campaign and made sure it was funded is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who abandoned Doug Lamalfa and every other Republican out here, and Donald Trump. Now, no Republican wanted Trump involved publicly because that would have made, Gavin Newsom's point. But they sure expected Trump to tell donors, hey, go spend tens of millions of dollars out in California and fight for these Republican House seats. It's nothing to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We're in this predicament. If you're a Republican, you're in this predicament because Donald Trump demanded Texas do a mid-decade redistricting, and then Donald Trump and Speaker Johnson didn't do anything to try to fight the response to that here in California. I think that's what Politico should have written a story about. Maybe they still will.
So was it a misstep then in the advertising, the messaging to bring back Arnold Schwarzenegger in a few of those ads? You mentioned, he wasn't out there in the public, and I really only saw him in those pre-produced ads.
Yeah, Schwarzenegger, he spoke publicly, gave the No Out campaign the opportunity to record him and put him up in an ad, and they did. Little nuance here is worth maybe at this point talking about. There were two no campaigns, right? Okay. So one was funded, the one that really spent any money was funded by a gentleman named Charles Munger Jr., who is wealthy and largely funded the campaigns back in 08 and 10 that passed the State Legislative Commission and then the Congressional Commission 2 years later. So he weighed back in trying to protect this political reform that he had a lot of skin in the game on. That's the committee that put Arnold on the air. There's been some criticism of the messaging tack that they took, which was about saving a government commission, as opposed to maybe a sharper edge, screw the politicians type of message, frankly. You need to get to that type of visceral level to turn the frame of this from fight back against Donald Trump to no, vote no and fight back against career politicians. And the no campaign never had the oxygen to do that. And then the little that they did have never quite found that message.
And that's interesting because, a lot of times people say it's the Democrats that a lot of the times are kind of, soft when it comes to these things.
This is where we are, right? How did we get here? Because Gavin Newsom said, we're not going to be soft, we're going to go fight back. And everyone said, thank you. And, there were people at No Kings marches, thank you, Gavin Newsom. So, he definitely tapped into this energy that's out there. Now, again, where does this lead us next? We'll see. Can you sustain this? Where's Trump going to be next cycle? I did races in 2014 that we could not get voters to come out and vote at all. It was Jerry Brown's reelection. Nobody cared. In Orange County, nobody cared. What happened 2 years later? Trump was on the ballot, and turnout went through the roof. So we'll see what happens next. In terms of the intensity, does it motivate Latino voters? And I think you're going to look and see this in these other states. The New York, is it the younger voters that they really come out? All these things that we've heard, all this anecdotal evidence. Now I think people are going to sort of sift through to see like what really happened, and that's what I think people are going to have a real hard time trying to understand some of the nuances of these elections.
I'm hearing some rumblings that we will hear from the governor any moment now, so stand by for that. But with that in mind, what do you think we're going to hear from the governor tonight?
Oh, I think he's going to send a message back to Trump. And this is what California's spoken. We're standing up to Trump, and we're not done.
It's a national speech. It's going to take place before midnight East Coast time, so he can make national cable news. Hopefully, it'll be a stump speech for president.
For president.
Yeah. Wow. This is about taking the fight to Trump, and it's going to be about him. And him demonstrating tonight that he's going to say, hey, I'm the guy that can lead this party that wants to fight back.
And who now has the political muscle and results
he's
to
demonstrated.
show for it.
Like I said, this is the first thing Democrats have had to cheer about in a year, is the result here tonight. And it looks like the margins of the results in Virginia and in New Jersey. But really, Gavin Newsom is who's going to be on top of mind for Democrat voters across the country, at least for the next several months when they're asked, who's the national leader of our party?
Yeah, it makes sense. Riding that momentum, right? Riding that win. Got to make the most of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's politics, right? I mean, some days you're up, some days you're down. And I think he's going to try to do everything he can to stay up. The hard part for Gavin Newsom is there's a lot of California criticism that follows him. And, he's definitely been pushing back on, you've seen him on talk shows and talking to reporters about the numbers that he can rattle off about how great California is. And I don't know if some of those numbers, really excite people when you talk about, these esoteric job creation.
Nobel laureates.
Right.
Yeah.
These things that are like not really top of mind for people when, we do have challenges in California. You drive by homeless encampments. So he's got work to do to shore some of that up. But he's going to be, there'll be a lot of people saying, hey, at least he's doing something. And that's what I think he's going to be able to trade off that for a while.
Does he come out with a conciliatory tone, or is he, taking it, like you say, to Trump, if you will? Because if he's speaking to a national audience, he's got to show that he's engaged.
Oh, he's taking it to Trump. This is about to be a firebrand speech. He'll be channeling his inner Barack Obama, and there's going to be a lot of gesticulating and a little bit of shouting going on.
Potentially some cursing. We'll see.
Well, with him these days, yeah, you could. Let's hope not, for all of your sake. I guess we're online, but yeah.
It's something that we are going to be watching because we are standing by to hear from the governor tonight. We also have our Alex Bell in studio, who has been looking at the numbers as they come in to give us an idea of how each district is voting, how each county is voting, giving us an idea of some of the initial numbers and what they're looking like so far. The interesting thing I thought, though, was at least when we've heard from now at least a few of the candidates, they all seem resigned to the fact that this was going to be the thing, right? You know what I mean?
I think everybody knew this. They saw the writing on the. I think they saw the writing on the wall when the no side kind of went dark.
Yeah.
They just knew, well, there's nothing. There's Charles Munger wrote several checks, got 30 million in, did what he can do, and said, "I'm done." So I think that no one else came to help him. So,
What did you make, though, of the governor saying, those on the yes side, stop sending money? You know what I mean? Don't send us any more money. How did that read to you?
Well, they had spent all the money they could spend. And I think they were a little sensitive about there being criticism if there'd been money left over. But what Newsom has done is he's acquired small donors that he can go back to and start asking them to start giving to a federal committee that would support his exploratory run for president. So the acquisition of small donors is worth a lot in politics. And he already had done a lot of building along that front, but being able to take this to a national scale has allowed him to grow that database, and he banks that asset mechanically coming out of this effort.
There is a lot of political gain here. Absolutely.
A lot of political gain. Yes. Yeah. I mean, like I would say, he wins this year. There's other things he's got to have to suffer through next year. Other people will rise next year. It's very early in the national nomination game. But I think a lot of other Democrats that want to be president tonight would rather be Gavin Newsom than themselves.
What do you make of the fact that we've had so many people turn down the race for governor? We've had Kamala Harris, and then just hours ago, Alex Padilla say, no, I think I'm going to stay in the Senate.
Well, yeah, Rob and I have talked about Alex Padilla for a while, and I had heard that he was lining up to start interviewing for labor endorsements. And, so they were moving toward that he was going to be in the race, and then all of a sudden he's out. So it's big news, and it's going to be lost. And, he did it in such a way that it was over in, 30 seconds. So, but, going back to the governor's operation, they had enough money to test all the ads that were on the air, including the ads that Tom Steyer, who was potentially going to run for governor, he spent $12 million on 2 ads. And they put out a release saying that the 2 Steyer ads were the worst performing ads that were out there. So when they have that much money to go and slap another candidate down,
Another Democrat
down, who was running ads, it shows that there's a lot going on with this Prop 50, and there's a lot going on with the governor's race. There's a lot of politics at play here because, you have so much money that you can go test all the ads that were out there, including the 2 that you didn't do, and then release that to people to show that those 2 ads weren't effective. So I think some of this is, they want to make sure that they get the spotlight, no one else gets it, and the governor's operation did a good job of making sure that this is about, what they put together.
And on that note, I understand Governor Gavin Newsom is out speaking.
Well, good evening, everybody. And let me underscore, it's been a good evening for everybody, not just the Democratic Party. But what a night for the Democratic Party, a party that is in its ascendancy, a party that's on its toes, no longer on its heels, from coast to coast, sea to shining sea. But it was not just a victory tonight for the Democratic Party, it was a victory for the United States of America, for the people of this country and the principles that our founding fathers lived and died for. And so we're proud. We're proud here in California to be part of this narrative this evening. We're proud of the work that the people of the state of California did tonight to send a powerful message to an historic president. Donald Trump is an historic president. He is the most historically unpopular president in modern history. In every critical category, Donald Trump is underwater. He promised to make us healthier. He promised to make us wealthier. We're sicker and poorer. And he fundamentally understands that. Why else would he call Greg Abbott saying he's entitled to 5 seats? Why else is he trying to rig the midterm elections before one single vote is even cast? He understands his position at this moment in the United States of America. One thing he never counted on, though, was the state of California. Instead of agonizing over the state of our nation, we organized in an unprecedented way in a 90-day sprint. People from all over the United States of America contributed their voices and their support for this initiative. We stood tall and we stood firm in response to Donald Trump's recklessness. And tonight, after poking the bear, this bear roared with an unprecedented turnout in a special election with an extraordinary result. None of us, however, are naive. This is a pattern. This is a practice. Donald Trump's efforts to rig the midterm election continue to this day. And I'll reinforce that in just a moment. You're seeing him take action all across this country, not just in Texas. You saw what they were successfully able to do in Missouri, what they did in North Carolina, what they're trying to do in Indiana, and inevitably in Florida. They are not screwing around. In June of this year, we saw 4,000 National Guard federalized in the state of California. We saw 700 active duty Marines not sent overseas, but sent to the second largest city in the United States of America to militarize our streets. We said in June this was a preview of things to come. What more evidence do you need than what happened in Washington, D.C., what's happening up in Portland, cities like Chicago? When we kicked off this campaign just 90 or so days ago in Little Tokyo, in Southern California, in LA, at the Democracy Center, Donald Trump sent Greg Bovino. He sent his private police force that increasingly appears to have taken an oath of office to Donald Trump, not to the Constitution of the United States. He sent them to our kickoff rally to chill free expression, to chill free speech, to intimidate people from participating. Just today, in Los Angeles, Donald Trump called up the Border Patrol, sent them to Dodger Stadium, and threw a fastball at free speech, right at the head, free expression, to suppress the vote in America's second largest city. Just did that today. People in tactical gears sent out to intimidate a community that is already on edge. But you see, as we speak, people are still in line. People waiting up 3 hours to cast their vote, to send a message to Donald Trump. No crowns, no thrones, no kings. That's what this victory represents. It's a victory for the people of the state of California and the United States of America. And this is a victory that's punctuated with a sober reminder that it's not just the actions that Donald Trump has taken to federalize our guard, to begin the process of militarizing American cities, to intimidate free expression and speech by utilizing ICE and Border Patrol in American cities. But he also announced today, right when polls were opening, that this election was rigged. That this election was rigged. Of course, those are familiar words. It's exactly what Donald Trump said after January 6th, that day of love, where he tried to light democracy on fire. He tried to wreck this country, and he called in to the Secretary of State in Georgia, calling up for 11, 12,000 votes, just like he called Greg Abbott, saying he's entitled to those 5 seats. He said this election was rigged, and he's moving to look for criminal prosecution and investigations at the Department of Justice. He is not screwing around. So tonight, I'm proud, but I'm very mindful and sober of the moment we are living in. Donald Trump does not believe in fair and free elections, period and full stop. This is not complicated, and it's self-evident to anyone paying attention. You start to stack up all of these actions that continue to this moment and will continue in moments to come. If you think I'm exaggerating, consider his announcement just a few weeks ago to send rapid response teams all across the United States, in all 50 states, tens of thousands of members of the military prepared for urban deployment. A preview of things to come. But back to this state. Our state of mind was resolute. Our state of mind was resolved to stand firm and to stand tall, to not be intimidated, to not be humiliated, to not fall prey to cynicism, to not fall prey to fear and the anxiety of someone that believes in only one thing, shock and awe, to intimidate and exhaust us. But we're seeing all across this country, 7 million people strong, standing up, not just for themselves, but for each other and for these enduring and historic principles of our founding fathers. And I'll end on that. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the best of Roman Republic, the best of Greek democracy. This fundamental notion of a system of checks and balances, of popular sovereignty, the rule of law. Mr. President, the rule of law, not the rule of dawn. And I hope it's dawning on people. The sobriety of this moment what's at stake. Tonight, as I said, is an extraordinary moment for our party, but again, it's an extraordinary moment affirming those principles. Our founding fathers did not live and die to see the kind of vandalism to this republic and our democracy that Donald Trump is trying to perpetuate. And so my call tonight, in the spirit of Whitman, we talked about the powerful play goes on. We all must contribute a verse. And so we need the state of Virginia. We need the state of Maryland. We need our friends in New York, in Illinois, in Colorado. We need to see other states with the remarkable leaders that have been doing remarkable things meet this moment head on as well, to recognize what we're up against in 2026. And let me make this crystal clear. We can de facto end Donald Trump's presidency as we know it the minute Speaker Jeffries gets sworn in as Speaker of the House of Representatives. It is all on the line, a bright line in 2026. And so I want to thank everybody that stood up, not just for our democracy, but stood up for those that have feel bullied and intimidated, stood up for this notion of co-equal branches of government and a system of checks and balances. And I want to thank my wife, who reminds me every single day that this is about those that feel alone, those that feel isolated, those that feel an anxiety and a stress that they never could have imagined in their lives. This was about saying to them, we have your back, we see you, you matter, we care. And I'll just say this, I'm confident as we move forward into 2026 in this country, the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Okay, you have been listening to Governor Gavin Newsom address the media there, talking about Prop 50 passing here in California, but also saying, okay, now I'm looking to some of the other states as well to follow suit, because I think he knows that, you can't just do tit for tat, right? I mean, Texas does 5 and California does 5 type of thing. This now is a race.
Yeah, there's an arms race. I think all the analysis of where gerrymandering could happen, the Republicans technically win that arms race by a seat or two. It was interesting to me he mentioned Illinois. Illinois, there's a subtext to that. Illinois did a huge gerrymander at the beginning of the decade. Big blue Democrat state. Governor Pritzker there also wants to run for president. They gerrymandered out of Congress the most anti-Republican member of Congress, an Adam Kinzinger. So when Newsom now is saying, come on, Illinois, do your part, it's a bit of a shot at Pritzker, because I don't think Pritzker can any more gerrymander Illinois than it already is. So now, a lot of flowery political rhetoric, but there's a subtext to all this now. There's many layers and layers as we enter into these presidential waters.
Yeah, speaking of presidential waters, we didn't hear what we maybe might have been expecting out there, a potential presidential run. We haven't heard that yet, but
yeah, but
soon.
we heard what he wanted to make sure everyone else heard, is that California is leading the nation, and other governors should probably do the same. So, I think to Rob's point, it's a shot across the bow at some of these other governors. Maybe it's not as easy as what happened here. There's other, these states have different laws and constitutions and the way they have to do things. And, for him, it was two things, right? Everyone else to get on board, take this serious, and I'm going to keep fighting Donald Trump. And that's what the message was.
We saw just today the governor in Maryland announcing a commission to study the idea. He didn't go much further than that, though. Where do you think the Democrats go next here?
Well, I think it'll be curious to see what comes out of this tonight. Is it going to be, I think we started the program talking about New York City and, how did Democrats handle what happened in New York and versus what happened down the street in New Jersey, and I think those are the things that are going to have to come out. Is to Rob's point, you had two people running for governor, two women members of Congress with backgrounds that had, one was a Navy pilot, one was in the CIA, very different resumes than the person running for mayor of New York. So we'll have to see which of those is the path that people are looking for of, we have candidates that have national security, they serve their country, or is it somebody who's a democratic socialist who wants to give away, wants to make the buses fast and free and open grocery stores,
Right.
Very different.
That's a great point. Is there a big appetite for change in the Democratic Party? And then also, we'll get to you on the Republican side.
I think there's an appetite for what do we need to do to stop what happened last cycle? There's too much. There's been too many losses that have been, fundamentally shaken the Democratic Party. Now, I'm not going to get a memo tomorrow from the Democratic leadership to say, here's the new marching orders. That's going to have to work itself out as we move into this next presidential race. But, there's studies that have come out where people have done, research on, okay, what's the way forward for Democrats? And to me, Rob and I have talked about this before. It's a lot of what we used to do when we ran campaigns. We'd get good candidates who could talk to both Democrats and Republicans and independents. And we've lost some of that. And I think that's what we need to get back to, of a Democratic candidate who's not afraid to go and talk to independent voters and not be scared of them. But, it's a lost art.
And I promised you your time, but it'll be short. Just your thoughts, 10 seconds or so?
10 seconds. Republicans are lashed to the mast of the SS Trump. The game is amongst Democrats. Newsom tonight is speaking to Democrats, but he brings up Jan 6. Voters knew that when they gave Trump the popular vote last year. Democrats still have to find an answer to what they're for and how they can govern if they become a majority party nationally.
Really quickly, Dr. Pan announced his run for 6th district. Yeah. This is all stuff that's happening within just not even hours of the election being announced, right?
So true.
And so these are things that we are going to be following, of course. I want to show you a look at the results if we can, because that's what this night is all about, right? There you see it with 64% of precincts reporting. The yes vote has 65%. The no vote has 35%. Proposition 50 has passed. Of course, we'll see what that final number ends up looking like. Still very early. Y'all know how it is here in California. They got a lot of counting to do, but there are the numbers right now. We do thank you so very much for joining us tonight. We wanted to give you some live analysis, also let you hear directly from some of the folks who will be running for your vote in the weeks and months and years ahead. And we thank you so much for joining us right here. For now, we hope you'll join us coming up tonight at 11 on Late News Tonight at 11 on ABC10. Thanks so much for joining us, though. You can always watch us anytime, any day on your schedule by downloading the free ABC10 Plus TV streaming app. Have a great night.
Can we get a quick photo before you guys...